Hello, everyone. We're live. These few short hours before the moon blocks out the sun.
Yeah, but we may not be in a few hours after the apocalypse happens.
I know the whole thing's going to end. It feels like, this is like someone said this is God's way of telling the United States to be careful.
There was a meme that was floating around that said, "Dear God, if you want Donald Trump out of the White House, please send us a sign like blotting out the sun."
Yeah, I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Well, so we're all nervous in this area because it's kind of cloudy, but it's you can still see the sun as of now, at least where I am.
There'll be another one in like 4 years, Zach. Don't worry.
7.
7 years? Okay, 7 years.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know they named a candy bar after Donald Trump because I saw this in the supermarket.
Oh boy.
But anyway, but
the 7 years. I mean, like this one, or
yeah. So
I mean,
full solar eclipse. Yes.
In the United States, I think. I mean, the one that they said the one that's actually going to come to our area, like where I live in the Philadelphia area, doesn't happen for a full solar eclipse until 2078. So I think that's
I think I can wait for that one.
It sounds like salesmanship to me.
For scientific advancement, it'll be 110. I think that would be interesting to see.
It is interesting how many people have packed up their car and sandwiches and beers and coolers and are going to some place where they can get a full 100%.
It's changed because when I was a kid, they used to be like, don't go near it, don't look at it, don't do anything, just stay away from it. And now everybody's going towards it.
Well, the glasses were like impossible to buy. Like they sold out everywhere.
Well, when I was a kid, I remember everybody made their own stuff to look at it.
They did if they wanted to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you stuck a pinhole in a leaf, and there was all sorts of goofiness.
Yeah,
I was a member of the Jersey Astronomy Club as a kid. So I have.
Why does that not surprise me?
I have a nice Celestron telescope and everything in my possession. So I have the entire neighborhood. That's why the show's actually going early today, because the entire neighborhood coming over of I don't know, boys and girls. I'll be holding my own little class in the front yard. And what I do for eclipses, which is really cool, is you should never, of course, look at the sun directly, and you really shouldn't look at it through a telescope directly. But what I do is I take the telescope, I direct it at the sun, I turn it on its side, and through the eyepiece, project that onto a movie screen. And so what happens is, you can project the perfect image of the sun. It's cool. You can see the movement in the sun. You can see it really looks amazing.
Well,
that's a fun way to look at the clips.
At 2:34 p.m., which is when apparently it'll be the most viewed, most viewable in the Western New York area. I'll be looking right at it, and at 2:35, I'll have burnt corneas. So
I'm going to look right at 34 as well, but I'll be watching it on TV.
Me too.
Right. Well, this is how ridiculous it's gotten. There is a live Twitter feed. There's a live video Twitter feed. The Weather Channel is carrying it live. The Today Show is in Charleston, South Carolina, where apparently it's 100% totality. So, yeah.
Let me ask you, Mike. Like, why is that ridiculous, and why does that ruin your life?
This is an amazing thing. I mean, it's incredible when you think about it. Come on, the moon itself is passing in front of the sun, and it's close. The moon goes closer and further to us, so that it's close enough now to actually blot out the entire sun. And in olden days, like I joke about the end of the world, but this would have been the kind of stuff that would have made people think the world was indeed ending. Like this is
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that because what is this? The movie Lady Hawk? I mean, I've ever seen the Michelle Pfeiffer, Rutger Hauer, when and the eclipse happens, and all of a sudden a person who's been has had a spell cast on them, which they were a hawk, they all of a sudden became a person again. It's just, there's just too much. That's all I'm saying. It's like it's the apocalypse. I mean, it's interesting.
Well, there's some way, to be fair.
But I gotta ask, like why does that? I don't get that. Like I think it's cool, but I'm not overrun by it. But like I don't like people that I know. They don't get excited because everyone else is excited about something.
Mike was against the naming of Haley's Comet too.
Mike, it seems to always bug you when a lot of people are happy. Is that true?
Yes, because I enjoy other people's misery. I'm addicted to Schadenfreude. But
so if everybody was like when did it make your day when everybody was so mad at Trump for his statement because everybody was just totally unhappy?
Yes, because I can't stand him, and everybody was on my side. So everybody feels
it's always right with the world.
I just want to understand how it all works. So.
We have to remember there are some people that have never seen it. Like we're a little bit older, so we have. So I get the excitement for people that have never dealt with it before. I do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're actually,
it's cool.
If you want to watch, there's a really good YouTube show called Smarter Every Day, and it's done by this guy out of Alabama, and he does his science thing. And he's a guy who works, I think, for the government somehow in in accounting, like nothing like crazy, but and he's a scientist, and he and his wife do this really cool podcast called Smarter Every Day, and they had an incredible special on the eclipse and exactly what happens, and this really cool phenomena that happens. So if you're in a total eclipse area, this cool phenomena that happens of this feeling like there are waves on the ground that actually occur right during the 20 seconds before and 20 seconds after, where you actually see this weird almost optical illusion of waves moving past you on the grass. It's there's certain things that happen there just phenomenal. And this is all, it's all just normal.
Mike, are you mad that Bonnie Hart's going to be singing her song during it too?
Oh, Bonnie, you mean Bonnie Tyler is going?
Tyler, sorry.
Yeah, no.
I like that song.
After 35 years, she gets a one-day reprieve. No, I'd rather listen to Eclipse by Pink Floyd.
She's on a cruise ship and she's going to sing it. So
right. It's the Poseidon and a tidal wave's going to hit.
Oh,
let me ask you this though. Long before we were warned that we would go blind, not only from the eclipse but other things as well, but that we would definitely go blind if we looked at an eclipse. So back in say medieval times, did everybody on the earth go blind? Because if you didn't know what was happening and suddenly there was an eclipse, wouldn't you look up?
Yes.
You would look up, but there's a certain thing about pain. People do you look at the sun. And it is painful to look at the sun. I think that definitely.
No, but elders knew it was bad back then too. They probably told people not to look at it, and they probably looked at it as something scary and religious anyhow. So they probably stayed away from it.
They looked at it as evil.
At some point, everyone on the earth had to go blind because I'm sure everybody.
Humans are the only ones that want to go up and look at it. Like animals don't even look at it. They don't even care.
No, I know. No, but that was a funny thing about that. Did you hear about the woman who was she should blindfold her chickens because
That's hilarious.
I'm thinking to myself, do the chickens always look at the sun? Is this something that why would they look at the sun suddenly now?
Right.
Let's bring this up though. Is there somebody out there who pays no attention to the news whatsoever, who's going to be driving around about 1:34 or whatever, is going to go,
holy crap!
What's going on?
Yeah,
I believe there will be. I have a Facebook friend who apparently had to explain to someone on a cocktail napkin what was happening because they didn't have any idea what would be happening.
We're a country of 330 million people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that
there's got to be 55 at least that have no idea.
There's some people that have no idea.
What's there are people who don't watch the news, and there are people who don't watch television too. Huge sections of people, who don't watch television.
People who live in the sides of mountains, people like that, they're not going to know.
I have the Amish. The Amish are a few miles away from me. Maybe what are they thinking?
They cheat with cell phones though, so they'll know.
Yeah, but it's funny when I drive through Amish country in Ohio and stuff. There must be a sect that they all have basketball hoops and they drive Buicks. Have you noticed that? big old Buicks they drive.
They're slowly trying to take over the NBA. That's the secret thing about the Amish.
Yes, and the nonconformist Amish, they drive Oldsmobile Cutlasses.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's traditional. Speaking of 330 million people, though, this is changing the subject, but I find it so humorous. Right. And I know Mr. Facebook, Russ Cohen, will back me up on this. It has become sort of a badge of honor or a badge of uniqueness to say on Facebook now, I don't watch Game of Thrones. Like, I have not seen a single episode of Game of Thrones. Like, you see it now all the time. Like, I'm the only person on the planet. Well, I want to point out that I looked this up to make sure I was right on this. There was if you count the number of people who watch HBO Live when the Game of Thrones, and they also watch on demand and HBO Go online, 25 million people watch Game of Thrones every Sunday.
That's crazy.
So that means there are 305 million people in the country who do not watch Game of Thrones every week. So I'd like to point out that I am the unique one, not all the people.
I don't watch either, but I don't post about it.
And Kevin, all 25 million of them are on Twitter and are posting updates, and or maybe
it bugs you, right? It bugs you.
Yeah, no. I don't care, because I'll still watch it, even though they've. I actually like to see spoilers of stuff, because it lets me know what's going on, and then I watch it to get the full picture. But I'd say 20 of the 25 million are watching it, and the other 5 million are on social media and pissed off that the other 20 million are letting them know what's going on the story.
So then you would have left Aroldis Chapman in as your closer because you like the spoilers, and I would have told you, hey, Mike, he's going to blow a couple games against the Red Sox.
Sports is live, and I like spoilers when it comes to TV shows. And don't get me started on Joe Girardi, because he rivals Terry Collins for stupidity when it comes to.
You need your own podcast, Mike. You need your own podcast. I think that's what's going on here. Slowly but surely, just Mike speaks out against that.
You want an hour and a half of negativity? Come on.
Every day people submit a topic to you.
Now, you guys have forgotten, because I haven't been on in a long time, that I do have one viewer, one of my longtime readers, who gets on me for giving Mike a hard time, because he insists that Russ Cohen is by far than Mike. He sends me an email all the time that Russ hates everything. If you read his Facebook, he's unhappy about all of his sports teams. He can't find no joy.
We refer to Russ as the Angel of Death or the Grim Reaper, because
he is bad. That's unbelievable.
I found out about Jerry Lewis from Russ.
Yeah, me too. He was first to break the news. No one is faster on the.
That's not true.
Ed Berliner used to give him a run for the money, but no one posts. And I have a lot of followers, but Russ gets up when somebody dies. Russ is on it quicker than anybody else on my.
If I like them.
I know. I really want I want to know. There's no way of knowing, of course, because I'll be dead. But I want to know that Russ was the first person who reported it. Like, I want to know about that somehow.
You know what the problem is? The problem is,
in a lot of cases. I'm not sure which one you're discussing here.
I'm going to tell you what the problem is. The podcast will probably start late, and I'll think that you're just starting late, and you'll be dead, and then I won't be the first.
Well, yeah, that's true, because it would be business as usual.
Hockey World. It's August 21st, 2017.
I'm the late great Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, I do not want to appear on Russ Cohen's Facebook.
That's what you don't want to do. And I'm Mike Lynn. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Do not stare directly at Mike.
Yes, I'm too handsome. What can I say?
This is the podcast that comes here every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And not a whole lot of news right now. We're in the last 2 weeks of August, which is definitely, I think, the deadest time of the hockey year.
Yes.
And the year in general. This is why people go on vacation these 2 weeks. But of course, due to the glory of high school sports and my daughter having to do 3-a-day trainings, our family's stuck at home for these 2 weeks, where we would normally be at our wonderful shore house. But that's okay. I'm not bitter.
Well,
so here we are. And today we're actually going to get into the Anaheim Ducks, because we were going to start our previews. And that's sort of where we are. I wanted to quickly address the rumors that I posted today, because I did find some hockey rumors out, and they're just rumors. We can talk about them. And I do want to get also the feeling on Pasternak out of Kevin. Let's start there, actually, because we haven't talked to you. Kevin, since the Dave Pastrnak stuff started flying around that he could possibly be traded or possibly, or what? I mean, I don't think he's going to get traded, but there's possibilities or get signed possibly, or and how dry. So, what are your thoughts on this? How this is all playing out?
I think it hasn't gone smoothly, and I think both sides are frustrated on this. But I agree with you. There's not any chance he's going to be traded. Everyone I've talked to said, these are the kind of things that come up when there's trouble, but eventually he would get signed. Money issues always get resolved. I think we know that, and especially with younger players. And the problem is you look at the contracts, Draisaitl and some of the others, and everybody's expectations get a little higher, and he's going to get some big cash. I mean, don't you think he'll get $7.5 million?
I do.
I see. I don't think
he got a little less than that.
Well, this is apparently the dilemma right now, is that they're trying to hold the line on Pastrnak to keep his salary underneath what they're paying Brad Marchand. Marchand gave them a sweetheart deal in a sense, 8 years, $6.1 million. I don't see Pastrnak signing for that. If they go to loggerheads and this is in training camp and he continues to demand $7 million, I think it's more likely he's going to take a bridge deal than take a long-term extension for less than what Marchand is making.
I think that's realistic that they could end up as a compromise. I mean, we've seen that in the past, but I think ultimately they'll get him signed for sure.
I mean, I guess the thought is what I keep coming back to is, where is he? We need names. Like, we have, all right, there are generational superstars. I've decided that's the top of the line. Okay, so these generational superstars are Crosby, McDavid, Matthews, and that's it. Okay, that's like the three. Those are the three, right? Those are the generational.
Well, remember that after this conversation, because I want to get into a list that came out. But continue.
Okay, yeah, you're right. The top 20, right? Crosby, Matthews, McDavid, generational superstars. Some would put maybe Carey Price in there, but the goalies are always difficult, right? So, superstars below that level,
right?
Is this where you put Draisaitl? This is where you put Eichel. Is this where you put Lino or Patrick Laine? Sorry, Laine. Is this Pastrnak in that group? Where's Tarasenko? Like, there's certain what's the superstar cutoff?
I mean, that's really an interesting question, and I think that really speaks to the issue here. Is we're not really sure what Pastrnak is. Like,
right?
We know he's a very talented player, and I think that's one of Boston's issues, that you're making these long-term decisions now, before you really know. I mean, obviously Connor McDavid is in a different category than everyone else, but even Draisaitl, as much as we all think he's a slam dunk. And he is. I mean, but we don't really know quite like how great he could be.
Well, if you put Pastrnak and Draisaitl side by side, Draisaitl's first year, he was a rookie. They sent him down after 40 games. He went back to the AHL. Second year, he scored around 50 points. Last year, he scored over 70 and had a great playoff. Pastrnak had a better rookie year. He only played around 50 games his second year and did okay. And then the third year, he scores 34 goals, 70 points. If you look at the trajectory, they're about the same. But Draisaitl's a center, which I think is a factor, and he's made a big factor. But I think, but both of them, I mean, Pastrnak started as an 18-year-old after being picked in the 20s in the 2014 draft. So I think that has to be factored in. And really, there's been no sort of downslope to Pastrnak yet. He hasn't had a season where he's disappointed. His stock has continued to rise. So to me, it would be beneficial for the Bruins to get him locked up long term, but they're not going to get him locked up for a number under Marchand. I think it's going to be closer to what Tarasenko got in like the $7 million range.
Yeah, but I think he's just, I mean, if you ask me really where he's at, he's just under Tarasenko, because there are other things that Tarasenko will do in his game that Pastrnak just will never do.
Sure.
And to me, that plays into that money. Points aren't everything. And again, I can't give him more than Marchand. Now, if Marchand says it's okay, I'll give him 6.5. I'm not giving him 7 just because other guys have gotten 7. I think that's why I think a bridge deal is best here.
Yeah.
You may be right, but I think they're going to have to give him more than Marchand. I mean,
I do too.
I think it'll be over 7 at some point. And you know what? I think players do understand the way that it's come. You know, there's always talk about that, like you can't, go over this guy because you gave him this amount. But, time marches on, and, at some point there's a new standard that has to be set. I mean, did Taves and Kane get screwed because of all that they've accomplished and Connor McDavid came along and, moved past them? No, they just signed earlier and that sort of thing. And I think the players do kind of understand that. Like, I don't think Brad Marchand would begrudge Pasternak getting more money. I mean, maybe he would momentarily, but if he thought about it, he'll just say, well, I signed mine at that time, and now he has this going for him. And, McDavid did that, and Draisaitl got this, and all that kind of stuff. Their players are pretty smart about it all.
I think you just don't want it to become a thing, Kev, like in the NFL with quarterbacks. Like, there are plenty of quarterbacks that are getting paid because there's a certain scale that in no way, shape, or form are worth that kind of money. And I think if you keep escalating this for really young stars getting paid early, you're going to hit that plateau before you know it.
Yeah, no, that's fair as well.
Yeah, and
No, that's definitely what I think.
And there was never, at least I've never heard of any kind of a peep out of Sidney Crosby complaining of the fact that Malkin, who was close to being a free agent after him, signed for more than what Crosby was making. Crosby's making 8.7. I think Malkin's making 9.5. I've never heard there being any kind of problem on the part of Crosby because he's making $800,000 more. Just they came up for free agency at different points, and that was the reason. So, yeah, I don't think it would be a problem for Marchand.
I think the only time you really run into an issue with that is if you got two guys coming up at the same time. That's always problematic because then you've got to sort of rank them, and that can cause issues. But I think all players sort of understand the time lag and that the events that are happening around the league impact. They also, I mean, their agents are constantly telling them that the timing is everything, and you got to be prepared for the fact that other players may blow by you on the deals just because of all the landscape changes.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it, and it changes drastically from year to year too.
And that's part of the strategy as well. I mean, agents will talk about that. Like, if let's not try to hit a home run now. Let's wait, because if we wait 2 years, instead of getting $5 million a year, you may get $9 million a year. So
precisely,
it's always part of it.
I do agree. So moving on to some quick rumors. I mentioned this last week briefly that I had been hearing some thoughts of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins perhaps being moved out, and this is, I mean, it's not surprising perhaps with Draisaitl signing that Nugent-Hopkins, who makes a pretty good amount of money himself, and has been, I think, a disappointment for that amount, although has still a lot of talent, and he kind of feels like the player to me that could really shine someplace else with a fresh start. He's now, and he's being rumored to Montreal. Now that makes a ton of sense because Montreal has no centers, basically. They don't really have a number one center. They have cap space because they had money set aside for Radulov that they did not use, and so they're in that spot. And I like the idea with it, and it was brought to my attention that if this happened, that this would open up the door perhaps for Edmonton to sign Thomas Vanek, which would be a much cheaper signing, and a player that some people in Edmonton feel could do well. And I mean, there is of course the irony of Edmonton and Vanek that can't be missed, right? But the fact is that Vanek is definitely at the point in his career where I think he's a much better player when he's playing with skilled players than when he's not. But when he plays with skilled players, could still be a skilled player himself. So, what are your thoughts of those rumors, Kev?
Well, I saw that Jim Matheson, who's a Hall of Fame writer and highly respected, a guy that is usually pretty wired in, he put out there on Twitter that he felt that having 4 forwards in Edmonton that total $33 million, is that right? 30. Yeah. He thought that was problematic. I'm not so sure that it is. If you add up the 4 Penguins, the top 4 Penguins, now Letang didn't even play last year. They're at $33 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now the difference is one of those players is a defenseman.
Right.
Right. And so, that would be the issue. I think Nugent Hopkins would be a good fit for Montreal, and I think it would make sense, but I don't know what the trade fit would be.
Yeah.
Like, that's the issue that I looked at when you said that. Like, what comes back? They don't have any defensive prospects.
They've got one.
Noah Juleson. They do.
But one, the one that they'd be willing to trade, they have to keep him now.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I don't know. I don't see that as a good fit for a trade.
Yeah, and after that, you're talking a first round pick or Arturi Lehkonen, or they have a couple decent forward prospects, but we're not talking about equal value here. We're talking about essentially a salary dump, because next year when McDavid's contract kicks in, you're talking about spending $27 million on your top three centers, and you cannot have a third line center making $6 million, which is what Nugent Hopkins is. I think he fits in as a number 2 center on most teams, and probably a pretty decent one. And he sort of learned how to play, more of a two-way game. You saw that at the World Cup of Hockey last September, and I think in the playoffs as well. But you can't spend $6 million on a number 3 center. You saw that with Pittsburgh. Nick Bonino was making $1.9 million, and when he basically was looking for what he got from Nashville, which is $4 million, the Penguins couldn't afford it. So I think there's no rush here. They can trade. They could even wait till next summer to trade Nugent Hopkins because he's under contract for 3 more years. But I think eventually he's going to be dealt.
I think he's going to be dealt at the draft. I think. Yeah. I don't think anybody's jumping at him now. I think they're going to wait for his value to drop a little, because the odds of him completely bouncing back this year are probably slim. So if you go to get him at the draft, you'll get him at a lower price as far as what they're asking for. You could trade draft picks. I think that's when you'll see more action.
If they were going to trade him, they would have done it by now.
Right.
They would have, when there were more teams that could have been in the bidding. There were a lot of teams looking for centers. You wouldn't wait till you've got one team that has enough cap space.
Right.
You would have dealt them. So I think
you have a unique situation. I agree with you, but I'm going to play the other side of that for a second, because you do have a bit of a unique situation here in Montreal, in a team that has, didn't get players that they thought they would get. I mean, it has way more cap space than they normally have, right? And needs a center very badly, and needs to where you might not have the right players to make it. But I think what Mike says to a degree is true. In fact, that if Edmonton were to move Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, most places they'd have to take maybe some of his salary back, where you could move him to Montreal without doing that.
I don't think so. Not for $6 million. Do you really think so?
I don't know. I don't
think his value has gone down that much that they'd have to retain salary on him.
No, they won't have to retain.
I think maybe some. Because, okay, maybe I'm wrong.
But I do think that there are other teams out there that are a better fit in turn. And you were told a rumor, and that we're going with that. But a team, and I have connected this team to Toronto as well, is the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina is looking for help up the middle. I think they need one more player who can score, and if they do that, I think they're a legitimate playoff team. And you look at them; they have 7 defensemen under the age of 26, and 2 guys in Trevor Van Riemsdyk and Noah Hannafin, who are RFAs next year. One of them will be looking for a long-term contract. Right. That might be a better fit for Nugent Hopkins, because he's under contract. He's locked in at $6 million, and you're probably going to have to pay Hannafin close to that on a long-term deal. So I think that's a better fit, or Toronto and Van Riemsdyk for one of those guys, than Montreal. Montreal has, in a way, I think, has screwed themselves, because they've traded one of their best young assets in Sergachev for a guy who they're going to probably play up the middle, who's not a center. So that's
here's the thing. I still think there'll be chemistry with Drouin and Galchenyuk, and there's no way I am going to condemn this trade at this time. No way in hell, because
I have to show you guys something. I'm sorry.
Julian will figure it out with these guys. I do.
We have the best viewers and listeners and readers in the world. This is incredible. Someone put this together and sent this to me just now. This is amazing. Check this out. So they've decided on this. Okay, here it is. Now it is time for Mike to tell you why you are wrong.
That's pretty good.
And then no truer words have ever been said.
I absolutely love that. Now it's time for Mike to tell you why you were wrong.
That's great.
Thank you very much for that. That's my wallpaper.
That has to be your wallpaper.
It would have been better if it would have said in time for Mike from Buffalo to tell you you're wrong.
It's time for Mike. I just like the expression too. That's
the expression's good. They got it. They hit a home run here.
They did. They got that. Mike's about to say that you're totally wrong. That's amazing. Anyway, there it is. Now it's time for Mike to tell you why you were wrong. I'm gonna keep this because if you start going off, I'm just gonna launch this as like as a background, and have a little theme song for it. Wait a sec, Mike. It's time for Mike to tell you why you're wrong. Go ahead, Mike.
It's a segment. It's a segment.
New segment. I love it. Okay, perfect.
Essentially, he's our Andy Rooney.
Yes.
Let me tell you something about.
He is our George Costanza. That is what he is.
Yeah.
That is at the end of the day.
I got more hair than George. Come on.
Slightly. All right. So. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I was going to say, do you want to talk about the top 20 centers? Because out here, I'll tell the NHL Network why they're wrong.
Yes, why don't we start there, right? But before we do that, let's go to Anaheim first because they're doing to do Anaheim, and we are going to be short on time here, I think. So,
okay.
I do want to talk a little about Anaheim because the Anaheim Ducks are going to be our first preview. And to start with, let me go a little bit about the Ducks. The Ducks finished in first place last year in their division, if you remember. Kind of surprisingly, they made a push at the end of the year. They had a rough time of it. Getzlaf had a really bad beginning, but almost like a MVP-ish type ending, where he came on like a storm of guys like Silverberg had a really nice run, and in the playoffs looked very good. Looks like he could be on his way. Manson, Montour, they've got some players that are deep on defense. That Fowler came up with a year when most people thought he was going to be possibly traded at the beginning of the year and turned into just absolutely vital to them. Kessler had a nice rebound, and the only thing I'll add to this too, which I do like to add, I think, is the changes in the players, additions and subtractions. Then we'll get on to what our thoughts are on them. The subtractions: Nate Thompson's gone, Shea Theodore, Clayton Stoner, and Jonathan Bernier have left the Ducks. Are no longer Ducks. And the additions would be Dennis Rasmussen as a forward, and then two goalies in Barrett and Miller. They picked up the two goalies to go along, of course, with John Gibson, who had a really good year and just turning into one of the better young goalies. Like we talked about, maybe the only three goalies under 25 that matter in the NHL right now. Gibson would be one of them. So. Yeah, that's my thoughts. And the Ducks are always, the other thing about the Ducks is they still have this curse on them that they can't get through Game 7. People do forget that they won a Stanley Cup. Like this was so funny to me. Like they did win a Stanley Cup. Like I think of teams that are cursed, like they've never gotten there. The Ducks did get there once, but they were very good. They ran into a Predators team that I think they were better than, but still didn't beat them. In the playoffs.
Gibson's injury killed them. I mean, I really think that if Gibson had not gotten hurt in Game 4, was it, Russ, or Game 5?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, if he had not gotten hurt, I think it would have been Anaheim versus Pittsburgh. Now, it's not taking anything away from Nashville because they deserve the plaudits for getting to the Stanley Cup final. But I thought that Gibson going down and Bernier, who he played well at the end of the season, but Jonathan Bernier is Jonathan Bernier. I think he's a 1B or a backup goaltender at best now, and that wasn't good enough to get by the Preds.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought it was a sneaky good move to get Ryan Miller.
Yes,
it was.
Yeah.
Because I think, first of all, that's so that's the way that Bob Murray likes to run his team. He likes to have enough goaltenders. He's run out of goaltenders in the past.
Right.
And, just to have a veteran guy as a hedge too, because Gibson, I think everybody believes that he's going to be one of the top goalies in the league when he reaches his prime of his career. But he's had periods of inconsistency, and I think to have a guy like Miller who had a strong season last year. I think was a really, really good move. Yeah, you only worry about that because as you mentioned, their defense is so strong, and they've got some younger players. I mean, they're so strong that when Vatanen comes back from injury, they can trade him, and they're still going to be really, really good, defensively. and Raquel stepped up. I'm not sure you mentioned him. He's a
oh yeah, no.
Yeah. The only thing you worry about is at some point, Kessler and Getzlaf and Perry, the wheels are going to fall off.
Yeah.
It may not be now, but it's coming up at some point.
I think they, Kevin. I think they have maybe a 2-year window with that veteran core, and Corey Perry looked like he was starting to slip a little bit at the end of during the regular season. Then I thought he played pretty good in the playoffs. But the thing is, you slowly see the shifting of the center of attention on that team from Perry, Getzlaf, Kessler to Silverberg, Raquel, and Nick Ritchie had a really good playoff last year. And they've got a couple really good young defensemen in Brandon Montour and Jakob Larsson, who hasn't played in the NHL yet, but from all it reports, he's going to be a really good defenseman too. So I think, to me, they're my preseason favorite to come out of the West. The only thing I'm concerned with, and they sort of stemmed the tide here by re-signing Patrick Eaves. I thought they needed to get one more scoring winger. And if they got that, they would be really, really tough. And they might do that like they did with Eaves at the deadline. But right now, I mean, they're good enough to get through the regular season and make the playoffs. So I'm really impressed with this team. And I think Randy Carlyle is a good coach in spite of all the people in Toronto who didn't think he was.
Yeah, I think this is the team that comes out of the West. I challenge anybody to come up with a better defense. I think Lindholm will have a better year this year than he did last year, and he's only 23, so that's another guy who can contribute. Nick Ritchie's only going to get better. Nick Ritchie started to really come on last year and be a real force for them. And I do kind of wonder, with Sam Steele getting 132 points and 50 goals, will he have a chance to make this team out of camp? You never know. I mean, depending on how things go, that's another possibility there. And their goaltending tandem, right now I'm going to call them a tandem, even though they're probably not. But because Ryan Miller's there, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I dare you to find a better one. Like
Kevin, you have to settle an argument between me and Russ, because I believe that Ryan Miller taking a $2 million salary is tantamount to him saying, I agree to be the backup. And Russ seems to think that Ryan Miller will never agree to be a backup to anyone.
Well, I think you're both right. I think that he went there knowing that they saw him as a backup, but I think Ryan Miller always believes that he's going to beat out the guys in front of him, and you can't rule it out. He's a very intelligent, cerebral, professorial style of goaltender. He really thinks well. He's a real student of the game, and I'm sure he analyzed that situation and probably concluded that as skilled as Gibson is, just as I mentioned before, he's had periods of inconsistency. Right. And I'm sure if you're Ryan Miller, you're thinking, all right, when he hits that period of inconsistency and I get 3 games in a row and I get 2 shutouts and give up 1 goal, then I'll get a 4th and then I'll get a 5th. And next thing you know, I have 40 starts. So I think they do view him as an insurance policy or as a backup, but I'm sure he thinks that he's going to go in there and prove that he deserves more games than the average backup.
And I do think Miller can mentor Gibson a little bit too and teach him a few things, which even if Miller doesn't get to play the amount of games he wants to play, he can improve Gibson just by being there.
Yeah, and I really, really like Patrick Eaves. I think he's underrated. Like he's a guy that can slide all the way up and down the lines. I love those guys that are capable of playing a checking role if they need be, or they can move in, like he can play on the top line. He can play anywhere from first down to third, even fourth line.
Well, I mean, the year that he had last year with Dallas was sort of unusual because it was more offensive than he had put up since his rookie year. And then when they re-signed him, they only re-signed him for about $3.1 million. So I think even if he goes back and scores, say, 10 to 15 goals, he's going to be probably a third-line guy who's very good defensively. I just think that team needs, like I said, one more offensive scorer. I mean, I've always said that, if the Leafs trade Van Riemsdyk before the deadline, that Anaheim is the place that is most likely for him to go, because Toronto and Anaheim have always traded with each other, and he sort of fits what they're looking for, a big scoring winger they could put on the power play. But not just him. I mean, there's going to be a few wingers out there before the deadline, and I think they'll be in on one of those guys.
Here's the thing, though. So Nick Cadiles, who's 23, who's 6'2", around 200 pounds, he was a point a game in the playoffs last year for the goals. he has a chance to make that team as a winger too.
Yeah, I think he's going to make it. I mean, talking to people out there, they really think he's going to fill Nate Thompson.
He's a solid player. I've liked him for years.
And Nate Thompson's replacement, basically. That they let Nate Thompson go because of him.
And Kasha played well in the playoffs too, Russ. So they do have some depth. But I mean, I'm just saying, in terms of a rental, they have so much depth in that organization. Like Kevin said, they could trade a defenseman and still be good. So that's
with this team, with the coaching, with the depth that they have, with the depth in goaltending, they'll be able to overcome injuries in the regular season. They will, and if they play it right, they could have home ice.
Yeah, they could. I mean, and I think Corey Perry's a big thing, though. I mean, that to me is their biggest question mark, honestly. Even though I do believe, and I will throw my other 2 cents. I mean, because Perry last year, he went down, he had less than 20 goals, right?
I have to. Perfect segue here, not segue because it's having to do with the Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks have re-signed Francois Beauchemin to a 1-year contract for $1 million, which makes sense because Vatanen will probably be out until November or maybe early December, and Lindholm is coming off a shoulder surgery, I believe, as well. So this is insurance, and we know that Beauchemin has played his best hockey in Anaheim.
This will be his 7th or 8th tour of duty with Anaheim, right?
third tour of duty.
It's not right. How many players have done that? Gone and played.
That's crazy. Yeah. No, and
Wendell Clark.
He's a good fit.
Wendell Clark.
3 different, like 3 times, Mike. Like he was there, left.
He was drafted by the Leafs, traded to Quebec, traded back, but from the Islanders to the Leafs. He went away, and then he finished his career with the Leafs. He played 3 times in Toronto.
That's a rare number.
Yeah.
Here's my issue with Brian Miller. Even though I like Ryan Miller's signing, I don't get out of Gibson I think Gibson really needs to think he's the number 1 goalie, and I do wonder if, I can just see another playoff, like another Gibson has a bad game in game 1 of a playoff series. And
I'm not through with that idea either but you know what? They have to protect themselves, so I get the GM doing this.
No, I get it. I mean, I think it's the right, but it's definitely something. I mean, Gibson and Miller, they know each other from the USA program. They already have worked with each other. So
Gibson has talked about Miller. He definitely looks up to Miller. So I don't think he's going to necessarily have a problem with it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm people think I'm a Gibson hater. I'm not a Gibson hater. I know you think I'm a Gibson hater.
Well, you don't like him. I mean, that's.
I don't dislike Gibson at all. I just think.
Gibson, Carter Hutton,
right? I just think he's overrated, and I think he's inconsistent, and I think he.
Yeah, I mean, a guy with a .924 save percentage in the regular season is definitely overrated.
Yeah,
you're right.
Playing with the best. I'm just throwing it out.
Save percentage is the number that pays goalies. Has nothing to do with the team he's playing on.
Me, it's momentum saves is the big thing for goalies.
There we go.
Gibson does not make momentum saves at times. I want to throw out others, but the final thing on the Ducks is behind me. I have the one piece of movie hockey memorabilia that I actually have is an Anaheim Ducks, the Mighty Ducks jersey up there.
Isn't that the Long Island Ducks?
No, that is the Mighty Ducks jersey from the original movie.
Oh, from the movie. Honestly, I saw the movie once. I wasn't impressed. So.
I hated the Mighty Ducks.
Oh, the Mighty Ducks movies are awesome.
They're less than awesome.
Yeah,
you guys just don't have children. That's the problem with you.
Yeah, no, I'm with that. Mighty Ducks movies, kids love them. It's fun to watch them with your kids.
Although if they put out another one, at least Emilio Estevez would have a job.
Nothing better than just a snow day and putting on 3 Ducks movies and eating a bunch of chips and hanging out. That's a great day. That's a fun thing to do. Anyway,
that was enthralling to me.
No, it is. All right, let's get to our top list because we got 5 minutes to go here. Sorry, before I'm invaded by children wanting information on the eclipse.
Well, we mentioned at the end of August, it's thin on news, and I understand that. And I did a few best of things for Hockey Buzz over the weekend, and NHL Network put out a list of their top 20 centers right now. And first off, having Connor McDavid. I mean, Connor McDavid is a supreme talent, and he won the Hart, and he won the scoring title, and he got Edmonton into the playoffs. But to put Connor McDavid number 1 ahead of Sidney Crosby after Sidney Crosby has won 2 consecutive Stanley Cups is an abomination. I'm telling them they are wrong. So put that sign up there.
I agree with Mike. There's no way I could say Connor McDavid's better yet. Even if I want to just base it off of a year, I'm still going to take Sidney Crosby until Connor McDavid proves a little more to me.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with Mike and Russ on that. Like, I don't understand that. You got to give credit for what a guy has accomplished. He can't all be about potential. I mean, we all know Connor McDavid's great now. He's going to be great still, but you know, that's an insult to what Sidney Crosby has accomplished, and it's not like he accomplished it 5 years ago. Like last year, World Cup MVP. You know, he was just fantastic last year, and you know, does what needs to be done. So.
And there's no bigger appreciator of Austin Matthews' talents than myself. You know, if I would have been able to vote for the Calder, I would have voted for Austin Matthews. He scored 40 goals. You know, he has helped turn the Maple Leafs franchise around. He's got enormous potential. But on this list, they have him fourth in the NHL, ahead of Tavares, ahead of Getzlaf, ahead of Bergeron, and Jonathan Toews is 12th on this list. I'm sorry, 1 year does not a career make, and 1 year does not vault you to fourth among NHL centers. You know, I think Austin Matthews could be a superstar, but he might be a superstar right now, but he has not established himself enough to put himself ahead of guys who have won 2 or 3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't put him any higher than.
I think when you look at this list, like, okay, McDavid and Matt Crosby, all right, they can be number 1 and 2, fine, right? We'll say that neither is too far out. You know, if you tell me if somebody is like 3 or more away from where they should be, because I'm like McDavid, Crosby 1 and 2, I'm okay with that. Malkin at 3, I'm okay with that. Like, it could be, you know, 3's about right for Matthews.
Matthews is a lot more than 3 away from where he should be.
Yeah,
like he should be around 8 or 9 or.
I think like 12. I think he shouldn't be in the top 10 yet.
Right.
I don't know though, because when I look at this list, you know what hit me is like, I don't think as much talent as we have in the NHL, it's not at center right now. You know, like
there's a lot of talent. Here's the thing.
This list is not. These centers don't blow me away like centers would have.
But he wasn't even a number 1 center all year. If you're in the top 10, you've got to be a number 1 center the entire year. You've got to be the go-to guy for that team. Like, you know, you got to be fair about this.
Yeah, understandably, Mike Babcock protected Austin Matthews from matching up against number 1 centers until late in the season, or until he couldn't avoid that, like in the playoffs when he was probably either playing against Backstrom or Kuznetsov. But most of the time, you know, the game that he scored 4 goals against Ottawa, he was the 3rd line center behind Tyler Bozak and Nazem Kadri. So, but no, I mean, if you go down this list, Tyler Seguin, 8th in the NHL. Tyler Seguin is a defensive liability. He's offensively gifted, but at times they've had to put him on the wing. At least they did in Boston, not as much in Dallas. But defensively, he's not good.
See, I would put Bergeron. Bergeron should be where Seguin is.
All right, so is Stamkos and Tavares and Backstrom, right? Those looking at those. I think Backstrom's ranked too high right now. I think
Backstrom's ranked too high. I think he's actually, as a scorer, he's number 5, good, but as a center, I think he's fallen a bit.
Yeah, and you know, and Kevin can attest to this. A guy who was primarily responsible for getting the San Jose Sharks to the Stanley Cup Final 2 years ago, Joe Pavelski, is not in the top 20. That's insane.
Yeah.
Especially because
the way you got to look at that list too is if you were going to play a Game 7 of a Stanley Cup Final, you know, who would you want if you could draft center? And you know, you really would want Connor McDavid second, but I think you have to take Crosby just because all he's accomplished. But you know, a guy like Jonathan Toews, I think what Russ said is absolutely right. You know, you'd want him, despite the fact he did not have a good season last year, ahead of a lot of guys who are ranked ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, do I want Mark Scheifele or I want Jonathan Toews? I mean, you know, come on.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think Kopitar on this list is kind of, I mean, right? Kopitar had a good year, but Jeff Carter on this list ahead of, you know, that.
You know, Jeff Carter should actually be higher on the list if you think about it.
He carried a great deal of the offensive.
I'm with Russ on that too. Carter had a great year. And not to be honest with you, if you talk about disappointments, like, and I get that the Kings offense isn't where it needs to be, and Kopitar is an exceptional player and he's a great player, but you're going to pay him $10 million. You got to get more out of him offensively.
You do.
And it can't be just that the team is not good offensively. Like you have to create the offense.
Right.
That's what you're paying him for, to be the guy that can carry the load. So I thought it was a little bit of a disappointment, to say the least.
Yeah. Putting Jack Eichel ahead of Draisaitl too, that's a weird one for me.
Yeah, I would never have done that. I mean, I don't understand that.
I mean, and I mean, Kuznetsov, I think, is probably better than Backstrom, honestly. But it's at this point in my world, at least. I mean,
I think they're pretty good. Yeah. So
I think what they're basing that off of, Ek, is Kuznetsov wasn't great in the playoffs. So now I think that's in some people's minds, he's not as great as he was a year ago because of the playoffs. But
what they're also basing it on is Backstrom is Ovechkin's center and Kuznetsov is not. So, Backstrom put up the points and takes the number one, center responsibility. So you really can't have him anywhere close to, although they have Malkin number 3 and Crosby number 2. So,
yeah.
I mean, what other centers are really missing off this list, do you think?
Well, to me, Pavelski is
obvious.
Bergeron, wasn't in it, Mike?
Bergeron was 11th.
Oh, he's 11th. Okay, he wasn't it.
I mean, Joe Thornton was not on the list. Henrik Sedin was not on the list.
Claude Giroux's not on the list.
Claude Giroux is not on the
one
list.
that I brought up because, he didn't have a great year last year, but like when you look at top 10 centers in scoring for like the last decade, his name is very high on that list. Actually, it's usually right around number 3 or 4. So the fact that he can't even make the top 20 didn't make sense to me. I did talk about that with Mike.
Yeah, I think that's the one that kind of hit me. And I know Giroux had a bad year, like you said, same kind of thing. But I think that, Giroux was hurt all year too. So it's hard to kind of hold that against him. Giroux doesn't get a whole lot of respect from the Canadian media. Yeah. I've noticed that just from whatever.
Doesn't seem to.
Nathan.
I think it affects the fact that he's not usually high up on Team Canada's list and stuff like that. But the other one that I thought should be on here is Panarin. Like, I think Panarin should be on here. Like, that's the name that I really
take off instead of Panarin.
I would take off Kopitar.
Okay.
And Panarin
I would take off. I would also put Panarin ahead of Monahan.
Panarin played mostly wing, and Anisimov was the center on that line. So that's probably
I guess that's right. But if he's listed as a center,
he's listed as a center, and he has played center in the past. But Anisimov was the one.
Yeah, I think they didn't even consider him. He didn't play really enough center to be.
All right, how about Granlund? Granlund had a great year last year too.
Nah, not yet. But I think they have. I think they have Monahan woefully low.
Yeah,
I think for what he does for his team, I don't think enough people get to see Sean Monahan play to really appreciate him. I mean, he was only 5 points behind the year before. He's 22. He played every game. He played every game.
Ryan O'Reilly might have deserved some consideration, and Nathan McKinnon in Colorado, even though Colorado was the worst team in the league. I think he is one of the top 20 centers in the league.
Well, here's the NHL top scoring centers according to the NHL.com. Okay, who's at center? So let's go through the top 20 because there's a couple on here that are different, right? So it goes McDavid first, Crosby second, obviously, Backstrom third, then Scheifele fourth, Draisaitl fifth, Panarin sixth, Getzlaf seventh, Malkin eighth, Seguin ninth, Austin Matthews 10th, which is probably where Austin Matthews should be, like right around there, like we were talking about. Probably about right. Granlund 11th, Pavelski 12th, Carter 13th, Tavares 14th, Eric Stahl 15th. Eric had a really good year last year.
He did have a really good year.
Nazem Kadri 16th.
Yeah.
William Nylander 17th, Mitch Marner 18th. How about that?
Well,
but again, you're going by just –
Again, they're not necessarily centers. I know. But
they didn't play one shift of center the entire season.
Yeah.
Why is NHL.com having
because
they've done that for years. It's a source of irritation with the Writers Association.
Okay.
They were drafted.
Panarin is not a center; he's a winger.
Yeah, and they were drafted as centers. Marner played center in junior. Nylander played center for the Marlies. But when they came up to the Leafs, they both played right wing. They never played one shift at center.
But here's a crazy thing. Okay, so Monahan's 22nd, but who's ahead of him in 21st? you're probably going to say he didn't play center enough either, but I think he did.
Who?
Alex Wenberg.
Yeah,
yeah, he is the center.
He's a center. Again, I would still take Monahan. I'll tell you why. There's something else I looked up. The last 3 years, and again, when Calgary has been up and down, he's had 20, 20, and 18 even strength. Actually, 21, 23, and 22 for even strength goals. Like this guy's a big time even strength guy.
Monahan's a good player. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. I just think that it's interesting to me. There are some interesting. I also think that, and people always joke about this, and they don't. But I think talent-wise, I think Jason Spezza is still one of the top 20 centers in the NHL.
No, not anymore. But he is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 50 points. He only had 50 points last year, but he only played 68 games. And he definitely, I don't know, still a factor. I mean, he had I know he had an off year, but I think Spezza is still one of the more underrated players in the league. Just my 2 cents on that.
I mean, he had 12 even strength goals out of his 15, which is really good. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, Monahan was a few ahead of him with like 18, and
he's not the top center on that team, so he's coming out of a situation where he's
52% on draws is pretty good. Like he was really close. You're right. I mean, I can't totally throw him out.
I want to ask Kevin one question before we end the show. I'm getting the impression, Kevin, when it comes to the Team USA for the Olympics in Pyeongchang, that we're going to see a lot of players that we might see in the World Junior and a lot of college products rather than. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what they're going to do. The majority of the players will be Americans playing in Europe. It'll be like John Bloom. It'll be Matt Gilroy. It'll be Arcabello. It'll be players that we've seen in the NHL before who've gone over there and played. There will be college players out there. Donato will probably make the team for sure. Greenway, the kid from he was on the World Juniors last year. Troy Terry. Yeah, he'll be on the team.
Mr. Shootout.
Now here's the thing: they don't want to take the junior age players, but they're not ruling it out. So in other words, if Middlestat, tore it up like Larkin did at the World Juniors a couple of years ago,
which he might,
then he could force them to look at that. But that's not their plan. Their plan is they'd rather take the older players.
But Kev, what happens if you have like a situation with like a Boston University where if they want like 3 players, they would miss, I think, like 6 games or something. Do you think a Boston University would give them all those guys, or do you think they'd have to make a deal?
They will. I think they will give them the players, but I don't think we're going to be in that situation because I don't know that they're going to take enough of the college players. They're going to take college players, but I don't see that they're going to take too many from any one team.
The Olympics. I mean, why? This is the Olympics. I mean, to me, like Middlestat should be there. I mean, he's exciting. I mean,
I think he's going to be there. I do.
Right.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think the game plan is solid. I mean, the idea is that you don't take the younger players unless they force you to, because experience does matter. But they're not ruling it out.
Yeah.
Like a guy. A guy like Steve Moses signed an AHL contract. He can go to the Olympics. He can. Yeah. So I mean that's one guy. But I know that you wrote an article for USA Today about this. I look at their goaltender situation and I'm like, Ottinger or Wall, I think are the 2 best, and these are 19-year-old kids.
I agree completely, and that's the one area where I think they have it's a little scary for them. They don't have that veteran guy. Although the guys that are in Europe, have performed. I can't even think now off the top of my head who they are. And I wrote the story, but
Merrick Madsen was another one. He's a little older, and he hasn't signed.
Merrick Madsen had a really good year. I would be okay bringing him if there was no other choice. I still want Tim Thomas to come out of retirement. Kevin must have Tim Thomas's email. Tim, just get in touch with Kevin. Something.
Right. Yeah, I'll pass that on. And he's right out there. I think he lives in Colorado, where USA
Let's bring back Tom Barrasso. I'm sure the media
Listen,
will want that.
Tim has only been out of it a short time. He has a goalie academy. I think he can do it.
Well, there's
Russ, if you start cutting out letters from magazines to put together a thing that I can give to Tim Thomas, I'll make sure he gets it. Like just cut out individual letters that say, Tim, we want you to play for Team USA, and then paste them onto a piece of paper.
Signed, Ted Kaczynski.
Well, remember, it's been forgotten now, but one year to get back in the Olympic pool, the USA had to go over to Austria and win like the B tournament.
Yeah.
And they got like Neil Broughton and Mark Johnson out of retirement. I think Johnson was 42. Neil Broughton was, right around that age or something like that as well. And they brought the old codgers out and they won that tournament and they got back in the A pool. That was years ago. So it's not. My point is, wouldn't be unprecedented.
Right.
To have a guy come out of retirement and try to.
Come on, Chris Drury. Come on.
I honestly, I'm
No, the
almost.
speed. They'll be okay with young guys in speed. I think in net, they really do need someone with some experience.
See, I'm weird. I guess I'm weird in this sense. I'm almost as intrigued about this and the hodgepodge that they're going to put together for Team USA and Team Canada than if the NHL was going. I found
Because when you put these two teams, when you put this team up against who Russia is going to field, there won't be a team in the tournament that is as deep as Russia. Now, it doesn't mean they'll win, but there won't be a team that's even close.
Well, let me bring this up, though, because I'm going to agree with Mike on this because, I've covered the Olympic Games all the way back to 1988. And before the NHL players, it wasn't as if the Olympic hockey tournament wasn't as big or wasn't drawing the ratings. You put a USA or a Canada on someone's jersey, we in North America will watch that and we'll get excited about it. And the Americans were always competitive. Like the KHL players, well, some of the players that the Americans are going to use are top players in the KHL. Matt Gilroy, and there's other players that are going to play over there. So, like, the Americans believe they're going to be competitive because their top players in Europe are as good as everybody else's.
But when you start adding Kovalchuk and Kaprizov and guys like that, it's gonna be tough.
I mean, your point is not wrong. I mean, they're going to have an advantage, but I don't think they're going to be invincible. No,
I mean, nobody's probably invincible. I just want to know, Kev, you covered all the way back to '88. Like, this is pre-internet. How did you communicate with people?
We got big stone tablets, and we got a chisel, and then we just would chisel our messages on there, and then
fire and smoke. Fire and smoke.
Yeah, mail letters is what you did back then. Mail letters. I need a quote.
I actually remember that. Gosh, this was years ago, but the late Dave Peterson, a guy that I ended up liking quite a bit, but they changed their defense prior to going over to the tournament in '92. Like they cut. I can't even remember who it was. Might have been Danny Kesmer, but they sent a guy home right before the Olympics because they changed the defenseman, and they brought in Mo Mantha at one point, and I just didn't like the feel of how it was being handled. And so my lead is that the U.S. defensive strategy was meanie, miny, Mo Mantha. And Dave Peterson, the U.S. coach, didn't like my presentation of his defense and what he was doing. And he just harassed me to no end throughout the Olympic tournament. Every press conference, he would start out like, well, despite what I read in USA Today about playing the Germans as like a thoroughbred against the Mules, I actually think Germany's pretty good, And then whatever I wrote, he would kind of contradict it. And I thought, man, is he really mad at me? And right after the Olympics were over, I was walking to catch a bus, and I look, and there's one person standing there waiting for this bus, and who it was Dave Peterson. I thought, well, he's going to let me have it right here. He stuck out his hand, and he goes, pretty interesting tournament, wasn't it? And then engaged me in this conversation like there had been no tension at all. And I just realized, that's how he just blew off, smoke. Yeah. He was the pressure was so great that he just needed to be mad at me. But when it was over, we were back fine again. So, I will never forget that. He was mad at me throughout that tournament.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here. It's good stuff. Enjoy the eclipse. It's streaming now, and it's, I guess, out in California. They're having almost a total eclipse right now. So if you're in California, hope you're enjoying your few moments to loot the area.
And tomorrow we'll preview
Eck, since you are the only singer in our group, you actually have been paid to sing. Will you close us out with Total Eclipse of the...
Please.
Once upon a time, I was falling in love.
Oh, God. Tomorrow we'll preview the Arizona Coyotes.
Nothing I can say. Total Eclipse.
Please hit the stop button.